No?
No, absolutely. It was the most scary. I mean, bearing in mind I'd done 14 years in the army, it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been married if I hadn't left when I left. I wouldn't have my kids if I hadn't left. So everything was absolutely fine.
So was it?
Although it's still a bit annoying I didn't get the pension. Yes. I think that all comedy is. This is my little theory. I think all comedy is death. It's all based around fear of loss. This is getting very kind of esoteric now.
This is quite deep.
So the average age of death of people experiencing homelessness in 2013 was 47.
Wow, that's shocking.
It's become worse. It's now 44 years old. I really enjoy spending time with these people who are experiencing homelessness. They are people, and their lives are totally valid, and they have fun and joy in their lives.
Dan told me you're a complete shandy pants. So
shush!
We don't want to have to put you.
But
in
this
a
is
taxi
this is
later.
purely for medicinal purposes. Oh my god!
Welcome to the Whisky Matters podcast, which brings in guests from around the whisky world and some outside of it. In the podcast, we dive deep into all things whisky. Today is a very interesting podcast with a topic slightly outside of the whisky world, but extremely important to us here at the Vintage Whisky Group. Hi, I'm Sam Brooks and I'm your host. In this podcast, I speak to Gary Colman, doctor, scriptwriter, stand-up comedian, and the founder of his amazing charity Game Therapy. I met Gary through a friend and I was drawn to his extraordinary story immediately. We learn in this podcast about Gary's journey from being a young kid up north to a special forces doctor, scriptwriter, to the founder of an extraordinary charity, and all this via stand-up comedy. Gary is not a whiskey drinker, but you need to see his reaction as he tastes our 29-year-old Glenlivet for the first time. It goes without saying, we genuinely love you to be part of our growth as a podcast. To help us, please subscribe and give us feedback so we can decide who we have on as guests in the future and the topics we discuss. Thank you. I'm here today with Gary Colman. Very, very blessed to have you here.
Hey, pleasure, Sam.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming here on a wet, horrible Thursday afternoon in Bermondsey. First of all, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? I mean, I was introduced to you via my good friend Andy, who does a lot of work for us on the photography and videography side of things. And I know you two have had a long relationship, but
Steady. I've met the man.
Yeah,
no.
Platonic.
So I used to, so you, Andy, who's like your producer for this show, really.
Exactly,
He's over there behind the camera, mucking up the camera
He's a bit
work.
camera shy.
Yeah. You probably should put some clothes on, but never mind. So I served in the army with Andy, back in the day. And
When was that exactly?
I left 20 years ago, so a long
Left
time.
the army 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, I've been married 20 years, so it was before I left. Yeah, so 20 years ago, I guess. I did 14 years, and then I probably left, 20 years. Doesn't seems like 5 minutes ago. I want to say, I left last year, but yeah, a long time ago.
I can imagine. But you're a doctor, right?
Yeah, I'm a doctor. I work one day. I still work 1 day a week as a doctor, and I was a doctor in the army. That's how I met Andy. Yeah,
Andy was a medic. Is that
he wasn't a very
as well,
good medic.
or-
He wasn't. He. Well, I think Andy was kind of a medic in small M. Mainly, I think he played football. He did a lot of snowboarding, and he did a lot of sport. You wouldn't think it looking at him now, but he was just. I think.
The camera shut down.
So basically, me and Andy attended the army in between sporting events. I think that's how we met each other.
So did you join together? Did you serve for 14 years together?
No. So the way it works as a doctor is that what you can do is when you're at medical school. So I went off to medical school. When you're at medical school, you can join the army then, and then they'll pay for you to go through medical school, and then you have to serve 6 years. You have to do 6 years of service in the army. Okay. And so I did that. And, I loved it. And then after 6 years, I extended to do the full to do a bit longer. Yeah. And I think this is going to become the me and Andy show. I think I then met Andy. About probably 6 years into my service, I guess we were just chatting about snowboarding. So I think I met Andy. If he's not here, he's over there. I think I met you snowboarding, I guess, or we haven't met in Canada. Yeah,
I thought he was lying when the first time I asked him about what he did in the army, and he said, "Well, I taught people to snowboard," and I was like,
I know, it's insane. It's insane.
Officially a pilot now.
Yeah. So well, so this is totally off track, but
Yeah,
I don't think we're ever going to be on track during this podcast. So
No,
let's
who
just start
cares?
as we mean to go
Just
on.
a bit of a
So
chat,
so I met Andy, who's your producer. I met Andy on a hill in Canada. I think we were both in ski competition. We were in a skiing competition. The army does a lot of skiing, so we were in a skiing competition. And we both got knocked out quite early, I think, of the competition. But we were there. We were in Canada for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so I think Andy snowboarded a little bit. And so Andy said, well, should go snowboarding tomorrow. I went, yeah, okay. We were just chatting about it. I put on, I'd been skiing, in hard boots in a ski competition. I put on these soft snowboarding boots. And I thought, oh my God, this is the future. I'm
This
never
is
going
for
to,
me.
and I literally never skied again. I
Yeah.
just put on, it was just the boots, the comfort of the boots. I'm a very comfort orientated person. Put the boots on. And then of course, the other thing is with skiing is a lot of the skiing is actually drinking, isn't it really? So if you're going to drink, you might as well be wearing soft boots and comfortable snowboarding boots. And that was it. And then that's how our friendship was formed, I think. And then the other thing was...
And where was this? Whistler or Banff? Or where were
this
you?
would be, I'm going to say Jasper. It was Jasper. It was Jasper.
Right, okay,
It was
yeah.
Jasper, yeah.
And this was through the army, or was this
So the
private?
army, yeah. I mean, I loved the army. Canmore. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think is near Jasper in Banff. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
I wasn't really paying attention.
Good snow over there, though, right?
Amazing snow. Yeah. But and the army is really good at sport. If you're into, I know you love your sport.
Love my sport. Yeah.
And so, when I was in the army, I would have done it unpaid, honestly. I just did loads of sport, and I wasn't really into team sports. I wasn't like a rugby player or a football or anything.
No.
But I loved like mountaineering. I loved climbing.
Individuals.
Yeah. So I did a bit of skiing and then snowboarding. So when me and Andy met, I think it was probably the first time we just met. We just sat in this bar, two blokes in a bar, getting kicked off the competition, going, well, what are we going to do now? And we started snowboarding. And I think it was that first night, we were having a couple of drinks, and we said, do you know what we should do? We should start an Army Snowboarding Association, and then we'll pay us to do this. It's just one of those crazy things that you say. And then wind forward a couple of years, and me and Andy we were running the Army Snowboarding. The Army literally paid us.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so for the last sort of 4 or 5 years in the Army, every winter, we like 4 or 5 months, we'd just be snowboarding, taking loads of blokes off, and women, taking loads of soldiers off snowboarding.
So what was the benefit for the army?
Who cares?
If you don't mind me asking.
Sam, who cares?
I think,
Yeah,
obviously
snowboarding.
You see James Bond going down the thing.
So the benefit of the Army is, I mean, it's first of all, it's a sport.
Yeah.
And and any sport which is people love, if it's self-motivating, if you want to kind of keep yourself fit to do it, then that's good because the soldiers will keep themselves fit to do it, and it is hard work. Even if you're
really hard work.
even if you're in the doing a bit of après ski, we were on the hill for 12 hours a day boarding. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And at the end, we were training with we were in Austria. We trained in Austria with the association, the snowboarding association.
Yeah.
It still doesn't sound real, does it? The Army Snowboarding Association. And we were training with the Austrian ski team, the national ski team, snowboard team. Sorry, but it was great. No, it was really good. So you could justify it because it's actually really cheap training for soldiers because you're doing something. It's physically very, very fit. You have to keep yourself very, very fit to do it. It's coordination, all the logistics of it, and it's also dangerous. I mean, what we were doing was really downhill snowboarding. So it's when we were boarding, we were in sort of plastic boots. Again, we were just talking about your friend who set your boots on. We were in plastic boots, kind of pretty much just pointing down a hill on a skinny snowboard, wearing lycra, helmets on.
Yeah.
Goodness knows how fast we were going down these black runs. We just charged. It was quite dangerous. And then we're doing snowboard across, which is basically just trying to battle each other off snowboards. It was dangerous. So there's an element of danger and risk to
There was
it.
a bit of competition there.
A little bit. Yeah.
Just a small amount, between.
But that's a very long answer to how I met Andy. That's how I met Andy, snowboarding. Yeah.
Fantastic. So obviously you're both accomplished snowboarders, and you were in the
20 years
forces.
ago. Yeah.
And then you served together in where?
I don't think we ever did. I think we just knew each other through the sport, really, wasn't it? But again, that was 5 months of the year just doing that.
Brilliant. So tell me, so you're in the army, and first of all, I'd like to say that we're incredibly grateful for what you've done and the pair of you.
Snowboarding.
No, for Queen and Country. It's a hell of a lot of time to give up of your life to, not a lot of people do it.
Right.
And so not a lot of people put their life on the line for the country, in any way, shape or form. So I think we're very, very grateful for that. And I think all the listeners would be in agreement for that. But after that, after you left the forces, what happened then? What did you do and where did you go?
Well, I left the army to do comedy. So when I this sounds crazy, but when I joined the army, to do sort of 6 years. That was my thing. And I just wanted to experience a bit of the army, do a couple of years, and then get out. What I really wanted to do, actually, it wasn't even comedy. What I really wanted to do was I wanted to write. I wanted to be a script writer, and I wanted to write comedy.
Yeah.
Oddly, so I got to slight distraction, did the army, and then I signed on for a little bit longer. So I did a bit longer in the army than I planned to do. But then I did 14 years in the army. If you get to 16 years, you get a pension.
Okay.
So I was planning to get to 16 years. But all this time in the army, I was kind of writing little scripts and things, writing little ideas, comedy scripts. And I got to the 14-year point in the army, still had 2 years left to push. And I thought, what I'd like to do is, because I was writing comedy stuff, what I should do is I should do one gig as a stand-up comedian, because my kind of comedy heroes who were making comedy films were people. I was going to say Woody Allen. He's gone off the boil a bit now. You can't really say Woody Allen. But like Woody Allen or Mel Brooks, that kind of,
Yeah.
So, and I thought, I'll just do one gig as a comedian, so I could say I'd done it, and then So I did one gig as a comedian.
Must have been terrifying.
Yeah,
right?
I was.
Or not?
No, absolutely. It was the most scary. I mean, bearing in mind I'd done 14 years in the army, it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. This gig.
I can't even imagine.
I did this little gig in London in a club in Soho, and I remember being introduced on the guy introducing me on stage, and me thinking, I'm not even going to walk on stage. I'm too scared to go on stage. Yeah. And then I went on stage and did this little thing, and it was brilliant. I loved it. That night, I was actually deploying off with the army. So everybody else from the gig, all these other new comedians, were going off into Soho to get drunk and whatever,
have a good time.
And I had to go back to my unit and get on an aeroplane, a C-130. We were flying off to Africa somewhere. And I remember sitting in the back of this aeroplane, just thinking, God, this is rubbish, isn't it? Now
Must have been a massive come down.
Yeah. But this was
like, especially if the act went well. It obviously
I think
went well,
it
did it?
did. I can't,
Yeah,
I
must have
think
been.
it
Otherwise
did.
You'd
I mean,
be saying, "Oh, it was the worst thing in my life."
but it was just so exhilarating being like on stage and being in the spotlight. Again, this kind of it's like narcissism of just going, you're in the spotlight. Whereas I was a medic in the army, and I absolutely loved it. But you're not in the spotlight, quite rightly.
Right.
It's the blokes who are going forward who should be in the spotlight, and you're there to look after them. You're a medic to treat them if they get injured. And our job is really vitally important. But you're not the guy in the spotlight.
Right.
Whereas for those few moments I was on stage, it was like, well, this is me.
Yeah.
And I was out in Africa doing this thing, and it was all very exciting. But I was just going, this is, no matter how exciting this is, it wasn't as exciting as being on stage.
So
So I came back and resigned. And
wow. So
just signed off.
literally 2 years before you could have drawn your pension.
Yeah.
You decided to give it all up and do something that you really were passionate about.
Yeah.
Rather than most people, I would imagine, would have ridden it out for another 2 years and then carried on.
Yeah.
So
that would have been the safe option, but I mean, I think the more interesting option would be to go just follow your heart, really, and just do.
Absolutely. 100%. And can I? Andy's
he laughing
cracking up. Andy's cracking up here because he's got the pension, right?
That's the man who got the pension.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Listen.
Anyway, I'm sticking with the story that I don't regret. But I don't regret it because also, I mean, I don't regret it. A little bit. I regret it a little bit. No, I don't regret it. I actually left on April. I left on April. I left on April the 1st. April the 1st was my last day in, and nobody believed I was getting out. They thought it was you wouldn't leave. You wouldn't leave.
Fool's Day, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't leave 2 years. And also, I had to kind of, even though I had 2 years left to push, I still, because of all my resettlement, I had like a year left to do. So it wasn't even 2 years. I still had to serve.
You've had enough.
But,
right?
But it wasn't even that. That's a negative. The more positive way is I loved every minute of it. I loved every minute, right to the last day. And then I just thought, I just want to do something that I love even more. I've done this. And I loved the army, but I just want to do something more. And if I hadn't done that, I also, we just talking about snowboarding. I met my wife coming back from the first thing I did having left the army was I then went off with the army snowboarding as a civilian. I was like a civilian instructor instructing the army guys. So I did that, and on my way back from that, I met this woman who's now my wife, and I've been married for 20 years, and so I wouldn't have been married. Thank you. Yeah. But I wouldn't have been married if I hadn't left when I left. I wouldn't have my kids if I hadn't left. So everything was absolutely fine.
So was it?
It's still a bit annoying. I didn't get the pension. Yes.
When I just asked, taking you back to your comedy and your first sort of stand-up performance, the kind of comedy that I love personally is everyday life.
Yeah.
I see things sometimes. I spend a lot of time at the airport. And I look and analyse the people that are working on the security and the people that are checking the bags and the people that are working in the shops and this, that and the other. And I think, oh my goodness, this could be the most amazing comedy sketch ever. And I think there was actually something called The Airport that was done once.
Yeah.
But where did you get your material from? Did you get it from sort of everyday life and people that you met on the street, or your friends or your family, where you just thought this is just unbelievably funny?
Yeah, I do gigs, and people come after the gig and go, "I've got this really funny story. You could use this really funny story." And what I find is funny stories don't work on stage.
Yeah.
So what really works are tragic stories, just absolutely awful things. When the worst thing in the world happens to you, I think that could be funny. That's really funny. So something that seems outwardly funny probably isn't a good place to start. Yeah. So I have like friends or people or whatever, and they just tell me some awful things, some absolutely tragic thing that's happened to them, and I'm literally thinking, brilliant, that'll be hilarious. I think that all comedy is. This is my little theory. I think all comedy is death. It's all based around fear of loss. This is getting very kind of esoteric now.
It's quite deep. Yeah.
But I think it's that. And so when I'm writing some stuff, I do new material every couple of weeks. There's a little gig in London, and it's a new material night, and I try out new bits and bobs there. And if I'm trying a bit out, and I go, and I can find where's the death. And I don't mean literal death. I mean like loss. Where's that loss? It could be loss of dignity or something. You could be like falling over in a banana skin. He says, if I can find where's the loss for me, I can probably make it funny.
Yeah.
So I've done I tend to talk about what you were just saying about that kind of mundanity of just normal life. I do that, but if you can find that loss in it somewhere.
Like gallows humour.
Yeah, that's why we laugh, isn't it? It's exactly why we laugh. Yeah. When we're in the army, that sort of squatty humour. It's very dark, very dark humour.
So, look, fascinating. Are you still doing comedy today?
Yeah, I still do comedy, yeah. I'm doing less stand-up at the moment because I'm kind of involved more in, I'm doing bits of production, I suppose.
Yeah.
More, but I still gig. I try and gig at least once a week. Sometimes twice a week. I used to gig like 5-6 nights a week.
Good.
But I'd like to get. I love stand up. I'd like to get back to do more stand up. Maybe next year. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think incredibly. I think you're made for it, really. But more
you're saying that as somebody who's never seen. He's never seen me on stage. He's no idea.
I've spoken to you a lot. You've got that general sort of spark and quick wit. I think. Without blowing too much smoke up your what's it. But reason why we know each other is obviously through Andy.
Yeah.
And it's because now you're the chairman of an incredibly important charity called Game Therapy, which we've supported just in a small way, not in a huge way so far, but we really want to get more involved with it. Charity work for us as a company is very, very important. Personally, I believe that, you should help out if you're in a situation to be able to help out people that are in a less fortunate position than yourself, than you should do. And so therefore we sponsor a number of different charities, British Legion, Trees for Life, other bits and pieces. But the latest one that I've been introduced to through Andy with you is Game Therapy, which is a really fantastic charity, I believe, and I think it's very, very relevant to what we do. We trade alcohol, we sell alcohol, and So I'd like to just, if you could just tell the listeners a
Yeah.
little bit about game therapy and,
Yeah.
how it came about and what you do.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, first of all, just explain what game therapy is. So, we're a charity, a registered charity called Game Therapy UK, and we provide this thing called therapeutic gaming. So, it's if your listeners have listened to if they're aware of things like Dungeons and Dragons. There's the game Dungeons and Dragons. It's a cooperative sort of tabletop game where you kind of imagine that you're dwarves and elves and things. This is a game I played since I was a kid, and so we use games like that therapeutically. And we work on projects with people experiencing homelessness, in addiction recovery, survivors of modern day slavery, people who've had really a life of sort of complex trauma. We work with those people. We also got projects for military veterans as well. We've got PTSD. We've got sort of what's called simple trauma. Trauma from an event,
Which is ironic, really, because it's probably not that simple at all.
No,
is it?
not at all. No, but that the phrase is simple
Yeah,
trauma
yeah.
versus complex trauma.
Yeah.
There's nothing you're absolutely right. There's nothing simple about it at all. And then we're working in the next year working currently on setting up some projects which will start in the next few weeks in 24 for going into schools, working with kids who've got autism, also working with young people who are looked after, basically in care homes, and also doing just recently. I think I can say this. We've just recently spoken to a big charity about doing some work with young people who have got a condition called Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which is a wasting neuromuscular disease.
Yeah.
So all these different conditions, and we're using games, therapeutic gaming, to help support these people.
So-
and sorry, can I just
of
pick you
course,
up?
yeah,
Also,
yeah,
when
go
you
ahead.
when you said you were very sort of self-effacing, you said, we help in a small way." We're a brand new charity. We only just started. We've been going for a couple of years. We only got registered last year, and you were the first people who came. You were the first person who came on board and offered funding. So it wasn't a small thing at all. I mean, the money you gave was just made a huge difference to the charity. And people talk about. I see these little documents. We're investors in people. We're in da 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 da, and it's just people just talking. But for a person, an individual to come in and actually put some money and not just it wasn't even the money, it was just the interest, the fact that you cared. It was hugely important. So I just want to just say that.
Well,
and
thank you,
and I also know that you don't make a big deal about your work supporting the charity. Well, because of your links with alcohol and a lot of our either we're working with children or people who are in addiction recovery, it is complicated us putting your company front and center.
Of course.
And you were very generous
You don't
when
expect that.
But you were very generous, and she says, "I don't care. I just, and it was."
No.
So just again, that should be recognised. It was
Well,
incredibly
thank you.
generous of you. Yeah.
Well, it's very kind for you to say so, but it is a genuine care that we have, and we want to continue to support the charity. Just going back to the game therapy, there's been more, from what I understand, from what I've read, there's been more data gathered in the States than there has been in the UK. How effective this game therapy is on people with personal problems, whatever it might be.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it has been right to date. So I still work one day. I do comedy mainly, but I still work one day a week as a doctor, and I work in London, North London, doing end of life care for homeless people. So I work within the homeless sector, and it was during COVID. This is before we had the charity. It was during COVID. Me and a pal, Finbar, who also works in that sector, who also played Dungeons and Dragons. We were just curious as to whether or not we could use games therapeutically to help people experiencing homelessness. There was some evidence in America sort of supporting this, but we, again, with our sort of British, cynical NHS sort of hats on, going. In America, all of their healthcare is totally in the marketplace. And so I have all this evidence coming out there saying how amazing Dungeons and Dragons therapy is, or geek therapy, whatever they were calling it. And we sort of slightly cynically going, is it evidence or is it just marketing?
Yeah, right.
Nothing wrong with that, but are they just marketing themselves in the marketplace? Yeah. So we did a little project, and from that we contacted a load of other people in the UK through social media, through Facebook, really just saying, look, what's your experience? Has anybody tried game therapeutic gaming in the UK? And people came back and said, we have tried it. It seems really powerful. It does seem to work. It seems really powerful, but there's no funding for it.
Why do they think that is? Because it takes people out of their mindset of where they are and transports them to a completely different mindset where they haven't got the problems and the issues that are normally floating around their head. Is it that sort of thing where they can actually sort of release and just sort of get a bit of escapism, or
It's partly that.
Yeah.
I think it's partly that. It's also, I mean, even on a more sort of basic level, I think just playing games is so fundamentally human. We were just talking about sport earlier on, and what a sport's a game, isn't it? Really,
Yeah,
it's
of
just a
course.
game.
Yeah.
And it's, if you look at animals that have got big brains, whether it's humans or chimpanzees or even things like dogs or lions, these big sort of pack animals, these big social animals, they've all got big brains. They all play when they're puppies and kittens,
of
whatever. They all play. The difference is they tend to stop playing when they become adults. They become less playful. Humans are kind of unique in that we tend to play our whole lives, and and I think it's just part of being human. It's part of having this big brain. We're so social as animals. We're such a social animal that we use play through our whole lives. And play is really important. Because it allows us to experiment and try things out and get things wrong without risk. It de-risks things. So, what's your sports like? Football or rugby?
So I'm terrible at football. No, I love boxing.
Right.
I've run a few marathons.
Are they your gloves outside? Or some boxing gloves?
Probably,
Yeah,
They've been
okay.
picked up for a while. Unfortunately, I've got a bit of a bad back at the moment. But I love all sports. I used to play street hockey as a kid on roller skates.
Right.
So
all those
absolutely
things,
anything,
those things that we do, it's just kind of codifying play, isn't it? Again, you're asking the question, why do you do snowboarding in the army? It's not because the army's ever going to snowboard into battle.
Yeah.
It's because playing snowboarding teaches soldiers how to work together as a team, how to experience risk, how to experience danger and overcome it, how to keep themselves fit. It's it's de-risking something that's incredibly risky, which is going to war.
Yeah, it's another good skill, right? It's another string to your bow.
So play is inherently human. It's how we achieve the things that we do achieve, and de-risks it. And it's self-motivating, like the snowboarding. It's self-motivating. You turn up to get on, to snowboard.
I would imagine if you're homeless, or if you're an alcoholic, or if you're a drug addict, or if you've got PTSD, your whole sort of life revolves around those problems, and there's probably not a lot of enjoyment in your life apart from maybe the getting high from the drugs or whatever, but that's short-lived. So I would imagine maybe the game, actually doing something that you enjoy from a game side of things, which is completely different, probably something that a lot of these people have never ever done.
I think it's kind of more, it's broader than that. I mean, I think there's a lot of social isolation. I mean, people experiencing homelessness. There's a lot of evidence that people experience homelessness in the homeless pathway. Apparently, they spend on average 18 hours a day. If you're looking to be in a homeless hostel, they spend 18 hours of a day in their room. So that's incredibly isolating. So I think military veterans again have a lot of social isolation. They may be happily married with friends and family, but they're isolated from their peers. They're isolated from the men and women who they served with, who understand what they went through.
Which is like their family.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that links a lot of our groups together is social isolation, or using games to bring people together. It could be autism. So we're doing a project next year on people with autistic adults and autistic young people. Again, just to bring people together who've got that similar sort of neurodiversity. Yeah, it just overcomes isolation.
So tell me about, how do you get these people together? How do you find them? Where do you play the games? How do you select the people to, do you go around the streets, literally sort of talking to people on the street and saying, look, would you like to come to this group? We're doing it here or there or wherever it might be. How do you then track the progress as well with these people? Because obviously I would imagine, you don't know where they're going to be from one day to the next. So they might turn up one week and then possibly won't turn up for a month or two. Like, how does it work? It must be a really complex sort of operation that you're running to gather the data, whether it's actually working or not. So how does that work?
So yeah, there's a lot of different elements there. So in terms of how they work, each project is bespoke. So each project is designed separately, and each project is designed. It's co-created with the clients. So by the clients, I could mean it could be a charity or an organisation as the client, or it could be the actual person playing the game.
Yeah.
So if we pick a couple of them, if you look at the homeless projects for people experiencing homelessness, one of the client might be a charity, a homelessness charity. So we'll work with them and say, what's the best way that we can work with you to deliver a project to help your clients, and then of course the people who then turn up, the people experiencing homelessness who turn up, they're also our clients, and we'll work with them and say, what game do you want us to deliver that you want to play? So everything is bespoke. It's designed with the clients in mind. And I think that's important. That's vital to get them to keep coming back, to keep them engaged. Similarly, when we look at another project, like say the veterans, again, we sat down, we initially were speaking to NHS veterans about designing a project. So we spoke to them about that. And then again, you bring in the veterans themselves and say, right, we've got this idea for some games. What exactly do you want us to play? So everything is created or co-created or co-produced with the players in mind. Bespoke. Everything is slightly different. So it takes a bit of work. But then they're buying into it, aren't they? And then they're part of the game. So we do that. In terms of the data, again, as we're designing the project, we go, what are the KPIs? What are the key performance indicators that we want to measure? So we need to measure engagement. Are they enjoying the game? And some of it is just kind of narrative. Some of it is just qualitative, if you like. So, for example, I mean, nothing paints a picture as well as a story, really. But so with people experiencing homelessness, we ask them, we sit down with them and say, how did you find the game? How did you enjoy that? And some of the stories that we give are just really powerful, really powerful.
What sort of, if you don't mind me asking, what sort of success stories do you know of from starting the charity to where you are now? What sort of success stories can you sort of mention, if possible, without mentioning any names? Or,
sure, yeah. I mean, when it works, it's just really powerful. I mean, so what we'd like to do is we'd like to have, and you sort of alluded to it, we like to have people turn up for a game and then come back again and come back again, because I think a lot of the power is in forming a group and forming friendships and forming kind of camaraderie, together. So that's really powerful. So we want people to keep coming back. Yeah. The games are designed for people to drop in and out. So if you just came for one session and then you don't come again for another month, that's fine. Yeah. You can do that. But what we really want is people to come back every week and really get into the game.
Choice.
It's their choice. Yeah. And that's what they tend to do. In terms of success, it depends which group you're looking at. I mentioned loads of different projects, but again, let's look at the homelessness project. For people experiencing homelessness, one of the challenges for people offering services is engagement. People experiencing homelessness find it very difficult to engage. And again, I think for people, if it's a game that they really enjoy, it's self-motivating. They just keep turning up for the game.
Yeah.
So you kind of cracked it there. So that could be a really interesting or useful KPI. Measure just engagement. If somebody keeps coming up, returning. I'm just thinking of one recently. So we're running a game in London, and we've got a client who turns up, and before the client arrived, their key worker had said, again, this client probably would really struggle to engage. They have an element of autism, and they probably won't be very communicative. They probably won't say very much. And so he came. They played a game. They were only there for 2 hours, and at the end of the 2 hours, they were just chatting away, and that's significant.
That's a result.
That's a result. One person to do that,
result.
And at the end, when we're doing the games, we have a therapist playing the game around the table. We do a check in and a check out, and the therapist checked everybody in, and this person didn't say very much. And at the end, they were just chatting away, and they just said, I just really, really loved this. I feel I'm sat on a table amongst friends, and brilliant. I don't know how you value that, but it's incredibly valuable. The other thing was, this person had never shared, and they didn't have an email, so they couldn't share an email. And we said, we'd like to get your emails just so we can keep you informed about what's going on. And during this sort of 2-hour gaming session, we have like computers there and things. They went on the computer and they created an email for themselves. Yeah. And again, their key worker couldn't believe they'd done that. They were motivated enough to do that. So narratively,
Yeah.
it's a big thing. You tell a story, you go, wow, that's, and the key work was very impressed by that.
Sounds very simple, but actually
How do you
it's
gather
a
that as
huge win.
data? Yeah. So for that person, that was significant, and they've turned up every session since then,
brilliant.
and it's a joy playing games with them. Yeah.
It's brilliant. So what I would like to ask you as well, Gary, is, you know, I know a lot of our clients and probably a lot of the listeners out there would, you know, see this as a really worthwhile charity. And we had a conversation earlier. We're in the heart of Bermondsey, and I see a lot of homelessness around here, and it's always very, very tricky on how to treat people. You know, always treat them with compassion. Sorry, not treat them. You know, do you give them cash? Do you go and buy them some food? Do you buy them a cup of tea? You know, a lot of the charities that are out there, you know, kind of punt this sort of message that, well, you shouldn't give people cash directly. You should pay into our charities that might be, you know, fantastic charities. And I actually don't know whether they are. So, you know, but the ones that I know of are Shelter or Crisis or, you know, some other charities out there. But then you wonder how much money actually, if you give to those charities, actually gets to the people on the street and all the rest of it. I find it a really difficult situation to navigate, you know. So in you know, firstly, how can people contribute to your fantastic charity, Game Therapy? But also, what would you advise on just generally, you know, people on the street? And you've been going around doing fantastic work, meeting people on the street, and as a doctor, checking their health and giving them medication and helping them with advice and giving up your spare time. How would you recommend that people in my situation and maybe the listener's situation, how would you recommend that we help?
It is really difficult. It's so, and I don't know the answer. When I answer this, I'm not answering as the chairman of Game Therapy UK. Nor am I. I work with the NHS delivering healthcare. I'm not answering in my capacity. I'm just answering as like yourself, as a bloke who walks past people who are experiencing homelessness. And what do you do? I mean, gosh, first of all, homelessness is a really broad area. So there's a lot of people experiencing homelessness. I know people who experience homelessness who are working, who work for the NHS, who are working as nurses, who are working, you know, and they are homeless. So homelessness isn't just people lying on the street. You know, it's not just that. It's way broader than that. So there are a lot of people experiencing homelessness, and I don't think we're talking about that at the moment. But there's that.
Which is great. That just blows my mind.
There are people
who've got a full-time
people in
job
work who are homeless
and they're still homeless. That just blows my mind.
I know.
You know.
So I think if you look at it in that sense, you go, this is a political problem. It's a social problem. It's a very wide problem. But what do you do when you're there on the street and you're talking about, you know, a person who is experiencing, probably somebody who has got a life of trauma? Generally, that's my experience. Probably, I work sort of doing end-of-life care for people experiencing homelessness, and the people who I work with are dying in their 40s and 50s. Really, they're dying from child abuse, you know, childhood trauma. I work for a specialist homelessness practice in London, and we have a service, a GP outreach service, where we go out and we identify and target patients who we think are homeless people who we think are in the last year and a half of their life, and we go out and target them and provide them with medical care. Because they're generally non-engaged, they're generally not seeing a doctor, so we go out and find them and see them and treat them and provide them treatment every 4 weeks. We go back and see them.
And they're quite easily identifiable, those kind of...
Not easily identifiable, but we can identify them. But it does work. It does work. So the other thing is just not to be hopeless about it. So the average age of death of people experiencing homelessness in 2013 was 47.
Wow. That's shocking,
It's become worse. It's now 44 years old.
How old I am, so that's shocking,
The service where we are, the average age of death has gone from 47 in the same time period, from 47 up to 56, 57. So just that service has made a difference. So we shouldn't be hopeless. We shouldn't.
no.
Nor should let politicians let us feel that it's hopeless. Things can't be done. Things can be done. What you need is services. Services need to be funded. Homeless services have been cut recently. That's again political decisions, but you just really need services to go in. That's what we need. And it shouldn't be down for people like you and I on a street making these impossible decisions. How
Yeah,
can I help that person? But there we are. So we're standing on a street corner and there's a person asking us for money or whatever. What do you do? Or you're on a train, what do they do? Well, they probably need money. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you this.
No,
As a doctor, when I go out and see people who are maybe chronic entrenched alcoholics, entrenched homelessness, they've been through the care system from a child, and they've been in and out of prison. They've lived a life homeless, and they're probably dying in their 40s, addicted to drugs, addicted to alcohol. One of the questions I'll ask them is, "Have you got alcohol?" Because they can't stop drinking.
No,
They have to have a drink.
That is deadly, right? If you are an alcoholic
And you
stop
you
drinking,
don't have access to
you
alcohol.
don't have access to it. That
So
can actually kill you, right?
One of the questions
Yeah?
I ask is, have you got access? Here we are drinking alcohol.
Yeah, I know. It's
Have
a
we
bit
got? Have you got
ironic, yeah.
access to alcohol? Because they need that access. So if you're a person in the street and you say, "Well, I'm just worried they're going to spend it on alcohol," as a doctor, I need to know
might
that
be keeping them alive.
that might be keeping them out of hospital. It might keep them out of hospital for another day.
Yeah.
And similarly with drugs, if they've got an addiction to crack or heroin, they could be spending £100 a day on crack and heroin. How are they raising that money? They're probably raising it through criminality, or things that we've made criminal, or through prostitution, through sex working. And if you give them some money, then they might just not need to do that
Yeah.
today. It might just get them through another day.
Yeah. Well, look, I think what you're doing is an incredible thing. I mean, the most, regardless of money, I think the most valuable thing that you can give as a human being is time. Because we only have a certain amount of time on this earth. And if you give your time to do, things as such as you do to enhance the lives of other people or to try and help other people, I think that's incredibly admirable. If people want to get involved and want to donate or want to give some time to your charity, what's the website?
So it's game-therapy.co.uk.
So
I'm sure you'll stick it on the
www.game-therapy.co.uk.
Yeah, and you'll find us there, and all our socials are on there, and you can donate, or you can drop us an email, and we can talk about some funding and things.
Yeah. And hopefully you've never asked me to get up on stage and tell any jokes, because definitely I've definitely not got many. Well, I did have one once, but no, I probably won't tell you that. But anyhow, what we're going to do, because we are, we've got quite deep today.
Yeah.
But to be fair,
But it's important.
That's what
It's
I wanted
important.
to do.
Yeah.
Because, the work that you do is deep.
Yeah.
It's not all roses out there, and it's important that we talk about these things.
But also, we're talking about game therapy, then we're talking about the sort of the work I do with homelessness. But also, the work I do with homelessness it's fun. The people I work with, it's a really enjoyable job. I really enjoy spending time with these people who are experiencing homelessness. They are people, and their lives are totally valid, and they have fun and joy in their lives. And people do care. So that's people care. People care about people. So it's lovely.
Yeah, of course.
There's always hope, isn't there?
Yeah. Anyhow, after all that, talking about the good work that you do and the opportunities that we've got to help people out there, and I think, all of our listeners, if you do see somebody on the street, don't walk past them, don't ignore them, try and help them any which way that you can, whether that's with a couple of quid or whether it's taking them into McDonald's and buying them some food or whatever it is, just showing them some compassion, I think is incredibly important.
Yeah.
However you show it, don't ignore these people. They are human beings, and we shouldn't judge anybody, because you never know what might happen to yourself. But what I've just done just now, if you can hear my wedding ring tapping against it, is I've just opened, for the people that aren't watching this, a Secret Series number 2 from Vintage Bottlers.
What does Secret Series mean? Why is it secret?
Good question, Gary. So Secret Series was set up originally because because we're cask traders through vintage acquisitions, we get offered a lot of casks. Some of them don't have naming rights.
Right.
Okay, and you might ask, well, why don't they have naming rights? Okay, and we don't sell these casks as investments, but they are fantastic casks to bottle, to put into glass. Excuse me. So the way that it works is the whiskey industry is like no industry I've ever worked in before. Okay, they will bend over backwards to help each other.
Right.
So you can have a distillery right next door to another distillery, and they will do everything they can to help each other.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Because there's so many consumers that I think it
Right,
doesn't
right,
really
right.
matter, right?
Right. Okay.
So
Wow.
what tends to happen is with distilleries, you know, let's say for instance, hypothetically, Macallan phone up Bowmore and they say, look, could you send us 8 barrels of your 1998 whiskey and we'll send you back the same amount of barrels of our 1998 whiskey. No money ever changes hands. They just swap spirit, okay? It might be for a private bottling, it might be for a blend, but what tends to happen is that there might be a number of casks that are left over after that bottling's taken place that are then sat in the cellar of a different distillery, and they can't bottle them as Macallan if they're in Bowmore's cellar. Okay, they can't bottle it as Bowmore because it's Macallan, but they don't want that whiskey to go to waste.
Right.
So they sell it to the open market with the caveat that you cannot put the name on the label.
Right.
Okay, they don't want it to go to waste.
Yeah.
But they don't want to get into trouble from the
Right.
distillery where it came from. Right. But the beauty of it is you get it at a fraction of the price. So we started the Secret Series. Our Secret Series 1 was a Klein.
Do you know who it is? Do you know who's in
Oh
there?
yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
and
right,
I can
right,
tell you right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Right.
so our Secret Series 1 was a Klein Leash or Clean Leash, depending what part of Scotland you're from.
Right.
And that was a single cask sherry cask, 30 years old. We sold it for about £325 a bottle. If it had Klein Leash on the label, it would have been £3,000 a bottle. Yeah, so that's exactly right. This is our
crazy.
Secret Series 2. We're going all the way around the region. So this is now our Speyside one. This is a 29-year-old Glenlivet.
Right,
okay. Same thing. If it had Glenlivet on the label, it would probably be around about £2,000 a bottle.
my word.
I think we sell it for a 295. I'm not even sure there's any left. But this is a purist whiskey. So this is, I know you're not a mad Scotch drinker.
Right, I'm not. But can I just say, okay, Sam? So
Yeah.
Almost like as a kid, I grew up and I saw like on the movies men drinking whiskey,
Okay.
and I wanted to be a whiskey, and I think it's something you have to train to do something somehow. I don't know. I just never got into it. I do drink. Andy, shush. I do have a drink occasionally, but I've never got into whiskey. I just never got into whiskey. I probably have had whiskey once or twice. And I was actually listening to one of your previous podcasts, and a guy there was talking about the experience of having a whiskey when he was very young.
Yeah,
And going, oh my word, what's that? That was almost certainly me, like hoovering up my dad's bit of whiskey or something, going, what?
Oh, disgusting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I've never sort of educated my palate to drink whiskey.
Well, listen,
so,
we hear that story time and time again,
totally.
right? And so...
But now I feel guilty
considering-
as drinking such a good whiskey.
Considering I know that you don't drink whiskey,
Okay.
this is the one that we give to people that don't drink whiskey.
Right.
And we've converted a lot of non-believers with this one. So this is a 29-year-old Glenlivet. It's been aged in a bourbon barrel, ex-bourbon barrel. It's a real purist whiskey, okay? So it's got not a lot of influence from the wood. You know, a lot of people always say to me, what's your favourite whiskey? And it always depends whether, you know, what time of the year it is, who I'm with, is it first thing in the morning? You know, all of these kind of things. That doesn't happen normally, viewers. We can edit this, right?
Is this live?
But this is a very non-offensive, beautiful whiskey.
Okay.
So I'm just going to pour you one out now.
Okay.
a fairly small one because Andy
yeah.
told me you're a complete shandy pants. So
Oh,
we
shush.
We don't want to have to put you
But
in
this
a
is
taxi
also this is
later.
purely for medicinal purposes. Because I know you've got a very bad back at the moment. You've had
I
a
have
laminectomy or something.
That's very kind
or-
for you to say so. Yeah, I've got a prolapsed disc in my
Ouch.
back at the moment. So if my speech has been slightly slurred, it's not because I'm.
It's a medication.
It's not because I'm drunk. It's because I'm on amitriptyline, cocodamol, diazepam, Peroni, and a
29-year-old.
Yeah, and a 29-year-old Glenlivet. So anyway, listen, I'll be
so
really
excited.
It's been fantastic.
So how do I drink it? I mean, I
It's
literally, do I sip it or do I swill it or what do I do?
Don't shot it. I would definitely not shot it if I was you. But
You've seen me drink before.
But look, it's been fantastic to have you on, Gary. I know it's been quite a serious situation that we've had, and I know you're a comedian, and you know I'd love to have you back on and have more of a jovial.
I would love to
have
come
more
back.
of a jovial conversation about some other stuff. But look, the work that you do at Game Therapy is incredibly serious.
Oh, thank you.
And it's really, really admirable. So please, people and listeners at home, if you've got some spare cash, you know, and you want to put it into a worthwhile charity that you know is going to go directly to the people that are affected out there on the street, please, it's game-therapy.co.uk, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So anyway, to your good health.
Yeah.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and to
Cheers.
your listeners
Let's
too.
Have a little
Here we
taste.
go. Oh my god, that's so
What are your
drinkable.
thoughts?
No, seriously, that's really drinkable. That is like, that's really nice. That's
you
not
go,
what I
you
drank.
see?
That's not what I drank when I was 14. My mum and dad were at the bingo. That was definitely a different drink. That's gorgeous. That's
So
really
it's
good.
decent, right? Yeah.
That's really
yeah.
good.
So this is a cask
I
strength.
can't afford it. The annoying thing is I've now found a whiskey I like, but I now can't afford it.
Well, look, Christmas is coming up. So anyway, this is 44.8%. It's cask strength. So this is one of the lower ABVs whiskies that we've released. But yeah, this is 29 years. So this was what I like to ask people as well on these podcasts, because it's all very well saying, oh, this is 29 years old, this is 30 years old, this is 14 years old. But you don't really get the gravitas until you realise, you know, where you were. So what were you doing in 1992?
Andy, what were we doing what can we talk about?
Your
I think it was
memory
all
can't be that bad,
classified. I've got a dreadful memory. It's so bad.
So basically,
We would have been
I'll start off-
snowboarding then, wouldn't we? 29 years ago. 29 years? No.
I was in secondary school.
29
So
years
that's
ago.
going to make you feel old.
No.
1992,
67. Yeah. Okay.
29 years ago.
What was I doing 29 years ago? Gosh.
We might have to come back to this, viewers.
Yeah.
This
You
might
should have
take
asked.
a
You should have
while.
prepared
It
me.
might take a while. But
I'd have been in the army somewhere, wouldn't it? 29 years ago.
Yeah.
What year was that?
1992.
Yeah. So Bosnia was 95. I was in the army doing something. I was
Yeah.
running around somewhere doing something.
But that gives
Classified.
you
It was classified.
yeah, of course, yeah. But that gives you the gravitas of how long that whiskey has been in the barrel.
Yeah.
You know, all that time since 1992. What's happened between 1992 and the 12th of November 2022 when it was bottled? But
then-
huge amount of stuff that's happened.
But then how do you? And this is unlike this is in investment terms. This is just gaining money. This is just improving.
I mean, we don't sell any of our bottles
Right.
as investment. We
Right.
just want people to drink them. You know, we want people to have amazing whiskey, enjoy it. We want it at a fraction of the price of what they'd normally pay.
Pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Crazy.
Honestly, if you
This is-
listeners, if you could see the look on Gary's face at the moment, he's genuinely
But this is not the whiskey.
shocked.
This is
He's
not the whiskey that
genuinely
people
shocked.
drink in bars at all, is it? This is not.
Anyhow, listen,
Anyhow.
we could go on for ages, and I think hopefully, with a bit of luck, we're going to sit and carry on drinking this bottle and talking nonsense for the rest of the afternoon. But viewers and listeners, thank you so much.
Oh.
Gary, thank you so much for coming on.
Mate, thank
Really,
you. I mean,
really
as I say,
appreciate it.
you were the first
And,
supporter of our charity, so
well,
huge
long may
thank
it
you for that.
continue, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and all
Mate,
your
you too.
family and good health
Cheers, mate.
to you and everybody you know.
Cheers. Thank you. Really nice, though.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. As in, I literally thought I was going to retro. I'd write like, oh my God, this is just really nice.
Thank you for watching the podcast. If you've enjoyed diving into the world of whiskey with us and don't want to miss out on future episodes, hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you will tell the algorithms you want to be the first to know when we upload new episodes packed full of industry insights, expert interviews, and interesting whiskey discussions. Plus, if you want to be part of the growth of our podcast and help influence which guests we have on, subscribing will help us understand what you want to see and hear. Also, why not join our email list to receive exclusive content, behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, and current bottle and investment opportunities, all straight to your inbox. Just head over to our website or check below for the link to sign up. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on what's coming up.